Hey, what's up, guys? This is Grayson the Dean 221 Nichols, and we are back again this week reviewing the best hand of the newest episode of High Stakes Poker. Which I will say, this hand got teased to me earlier today on Twitter when I saw PokerGo put out a quick clip of a hand where Dwan says he was about to call with 10 high, and JRB just gave him this completely stunned look. And so obviously I was intrigued, and sure enough, the hand didn't disappoint. So let's jump right in and check out this hand where Tom Dwan considers calling a big bet on the river with 10 high. So just to give you guys a little background for those who haven't been tuning in the last few weeks, and if you haven't, go back and watch the prior episodes. We're doing one every week with the new episodes. Right now, the table is being run by Rick Solomon. As we've talked about often, this guy is a pretty crazy producer, actor, just throws around a lot of money. He's got the table chip lead now. A few newcomers, this guy, Schwimmer, who used to be a baseball player, Andres, high stakes professional, JRB, fan favorite professional, and Tom Dwan, who's just, as we know, the best. So Schwimmer, who seems a little tilted at this point, blinds are 400, 800 now. They've went up from 200, 400. He opens up the action for 3,000 to go. Gets called by Andres and and Solomon somehow folds. So flop comes Jack 5-7, 2 clubs. So has the gut shot. Schwimmer has the second nut flush draw, and Andres has bottom pair and a backdoor flush draw. So everyone's got a piece here. Tom obviously having the worst of it, right? So Tom checks. Schwimmer goes ahead and c-bets 3,500. Andres calls with his bottom pair. Back to Dwan, who kind of sighs, laughs, and calls with his gut shot. So this is where it gets interesting. So the turn completes the flush, pairs the board also. So Schwimmer hits basically a monster for him in this spot, right? Dwan, bet checks here, as we expect, giving up. And Schwimmer decides to not bet here, which I find very strange. I thought he would bet here, but he goes ahead and checks to Andres, who also, of course, checks with his bottom pair, probably also giving up, right? So now we're at a strange spot. The board pairs on the river. Jacks and sevens and a 5, right? The flush is out there, board is paired. Everything's gotten there, right? So Tom, again, looking to check, fold, checks. Schwimmer, probably looking to check, call, checks. And the action gets to Andres, who I guess being caught with the bottom of his range, knowing he can't win with a check since his 5s don't play anymore, decides to fire out a bluff of 17K. And then this is where it gets really weird. So now Dwan goes into the tank. And it's not for long. He thinks maybe 20, 30 seconds, right? But he seems to give some legitimate thought to calling in this spot, right? And then he folds. And Schwimmer ends up calling with the flush and wins, of course, right? And Dwan looks over at Schwimmer and says, "Hey, Schwims, would you have called if I did?" And he goes, "No, absolutely not. I would have folded." And Dwan smiles and goes, "Wow, that would have been sick." And JRB says, "Why? What's that?" And he goes, "Did you almost call with ace high?" And Tom goes, "No, 10 high." And then he just looks at him completely perplexed. He's just like, "How is that possible?" And Dwan said, "Well, you can't have a jack or a 7. And so I thought this would be interesting, for us to go back and kind of look at this, right, and think about it, right? Like, would his 10 high call have made sense? And how crazy would that have been if he had called with 10 high, been right, and then Schwimmer would have folded the king high flush, right? So let's think about it. If he had a jack, would he have kind of made it shown somewhere earlier, right? So on the flop, Schwimmer bets, he could have called with a jack, yes. On the turn, would he have checked back with a jack here is the question. Depends. I think a lot of jacks might lean towards bet folding on that turn, since the population doesn't seem to check raise often on turns as a bluff. So I think maybe if he had something like queen jack, he could just bet on this turn, knowing that he's going to give up if Schwimmer or Dwan raise, and then he could check back on the river. I don't think it's outrageous that he could check back some jacks, though, but I do tend to agree he would bet with them in that spot. would a 7 make sense for him? No, there's not really many 7s he'd call pre-flop. On the flop, same thing, except for maybe like a 7-8 suited, I suppose. Turn, he would also definitely bet with his 7, so that's even less likely. And then once you get to the river, it's again, it's jack or bust, right? So it's like he's not betting like ace high for value. He's certainly not betting king high. And it's unlikely that he has something like 8s or 9s or 10s or queens, kings, aces. So when you suddenly rule out a lot of these hands, right, it actually kind of makes sense that Tom would want to call with 10 high. And so if Tom did call with 10 high, let's look at the hands that he'd be hoping to see. Well, he'd probably be hoping to see something like 8-9, 8-6, things like 2s, 3s, 4s, 6s, all of which have been counterfeited. So all of those make quite a bit of sense. But I imagine one of the problems for him also is that, one of the hands that would be a bluff here would also be like 9-10 as well, right? And so that kind of is a little bit of an issue when he would end up chopping with that, right? But I think it makes sense. There's a number of those hands. Like we said, there was about 4 pairs, pocket pairs, that might turn themselves into a bluff in that spot. And then a couple missed straight draws. And there's not a ton of just jacks that he would play that way. So I think calling here in Dwan's seat kind of makes a lot of sense, right? Not that I'd be able to pull the trigger for a $17,000 bet with 10 high, but when you kind of go back and map it out, the logic is there, and Tom once again proves that his instincts are just bar none, like, up there with the poker elites in the world. So really fun hand. I recommend going and checking it out on Poker Go and looking for JRB's reaction. It is priceless. Really cool hand. Hope you guys enjoyed this hand. Again, we will be doing this every week with the new episode. It just finished about 10 minutes ago, just fresh off. So yeah, it was a cool episode. Looking forward to next week's. Tune in again on the Elite Rounders YouTube channel where we'll be doing a new episode every week. And I'm looking forward to talking about it with you guys again then. All right, good luck this week, guys. Take it easy. Bye.